It is week 12 of the NFL season, and we've got a great slate of games this week, including 3 Thanksgiving Day games. Now, this is the most hyped up I've been about Thanksgiving Day NFL in a long time, if not ever. We have one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Josh Allen. We've got two of the best receivers in the league in Stefon Diggs and Justin Jefferson. We get to see Saquon Barkley in his comeback season. And we get to watch Bill Belichick coach on Thanksgiving Day. It doesn't get much better than this. So without further ado, let's get to the Week 12 NFL predictions. And by the way, I hope you like the backgrounds I made this week. It's a special week, so I want to make this a little festive. So I hope you enjoy. Let's get to the picks. The first of 3 Thanksgiving Day games, the Bills and the Lions. The Bills got back on the winning track last week by beating the Browns, while the Lions, they made it 3 in a row by dominating the Giants. So the Lions on a 3-game winning streak, a team that has confidence. Now, right now, the line is set at 9.5 points in favor of the Bills. But I would not be surprised if the Lions covered in this game. And here's why. Even though the Lions are 32nd total defense, I think they have the offense to stay in this game from start to finish because the Bills' defense has looked lackluster the last few weeks. And who knows what to expect out of the Lions' backfield? Are we going to finally see DeAndre Swift get the majority of the work? Or are we going to see more of Jamal Williams? I really don't know at this point, and nobody really knows. But I think the Bills are going to win this game. I think they're going to win by double digits, but I would not be surprised if the Lions, if they covered in this game, because I think they have the intangibles to do it. But I just expect the Lions receivers of Stefon Diggs and Gabe Davis to have a big day against this Lions secondary. Giants and Cowboys. The Cowboys are coming off of a dominant win against the Vikings, while the Giants are coming off of an absolute beatdown by the Lions. But I like this matchup here. We've got great running backs in this game. Saquon Barkley in his comeback season, and Zeke and Tony Pollard, who is starting to emerge as the running back one for the Cowboys. So I anticipate Tony Pollard is going to get a lot more work at running back. As Tony Pollard, I believe he's averaging over 6-7 yards a carry, which is really impressive. But ever since Dak came back from injury, this Cowboys offense has been close to unstoppable, but they did have that defeat against the Packers, but it was a small roadblock. I expect the Cowboys to absolutely dominate this game. Wan'Dale Robinson for the Giants, he's out for the year with an ACL injury, who was starting to emerge as the wide receiver one for the Giants after the Giants traded Kadarius Toney. And Kenny Golladay still doesn't have a touchdown for the Giants. So who do the Giants throw to at this point? Who do the Giants have other than Saquon Barkley? Richie James to step up as the wide receiver one? Yeah, this game's going to be a tall order for the Giants, and I expect the Cowboys to absolutely dominate, especially with how dominant this defense has been throughout most of the season. The third and final Thanksgiving Day game, the Patriots and the Vikings. Now, the Vikings are coming off of that beatdown on Sunday against the Cowboys, while the Patriots are coming off of that thrilling 10-3 win over the Jets on a game-winning punt return. Now, I'm going to pick the Patriots to upset the Vikings here. I think the Patriots win because, for starters, primetime Kirk Cousins. And we know that primetime Kirk Cousins does not do well. Plus, Bill Belichick is notorious for taking away the opposition's best. And their best is Justin Jefferson. So I am interested to see how Bill Belichick is going to find the ways to take away Justin Jefferson's impact in this game. And it has been done throughout the year. It was done by the Eagles. It was done last week by the Cowboys. Plus, the Patriots defense is one of the best defenses in the league. So I am going to go with New England to win this game. Plus, the Vikings defense has just looked atrocious all year long. This is going to be the type of game that Mac Jones just needs to manage the game. He doesn't need to make these big-time plays. He doesn't need to try to be the next Tom Brady. He just needs to be himself in this game. Plus, I expect a big game out of Ramondre Stevenson. After the Vikings, they allowed a big performance by Tony Pollard. This game has a New England victory written all over it, and primetime Kirk Cousins to lose yet again in primetime. Bucks and Browns. The Bucks are coming off their bye week, while the Browns are coming off of a defeat to the Bills in Detroit after that game had to get moved due to the weather. Now, with the Bucks coming off their bye week, the Bucks, they have really started to step up their offense the last couple of weeks. They're on a 2-game winning streak right now, have the bye week, had that week of rest to come up with ideas to improve the offense that had been struggling throughout the entire season. But the 2-game winning streak, we've seen Tom Brady start to get back to his old ways. And I think that continues this week against a Browns team that is just super inconsistent, a team that is reliant on the running game. And the Bucks defense, they have a good run defense. So I'm going with Tampa Bay to make it 3 in a row. And I remember saying after the Bucks lost the Ravens on Thursday Night Football, I told people not to panic because it's only a matter of time till the Bucks start to get hot. And they'll go to 3 in a row after beating the Browns. Bengals and Titans, a rematch of the divisional round last year where the Bengals ended up winning on a game-winning field goal. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times in that game. But I did receive a comment in my comment section a few weeks ago about why do I keep doubting the Bengals? It's not that. I am picking the Titans to win this game, but here's my logistics and reasoning behind it. Derrick Henry's not going to be on a limited snap count in this game like he was in that playoff matchup. Jamar Chase, he's expected to be back this week. It's possible that he will be back this week and play, but I would imagine he's going to be on a limited snap count. Plus, this Titans team has revenge on their minds. The Titans also have a few days extra rest by playing on Thursday Night Football. So the Titans, they do have momentum. They held their own against the Chiefs from start to finish. They held their own against the Broncos in a defensive battle. So the Titans, they have momentum right now. The Bengals, they gave up over 90 rushing yards to Najee Harris last week. They allowed Najee Harris to have his best game of the year. So I am going with the Titans. Texans and the Dolphins. The Texans, even though they have a couple of gems on their team, and Derek Stingley Jr., I think Dameon Pierce has a lot of potential. And Brandon Cooks, even though he has pretty much given up on the team because he wanted to be traded at the deadline, they've been pitiful all season long, to put it lightly. While Tua Tagovailoa for the Dolphins is undefeated when he starts and finishes a game this season, and they're coming off their bye week. So that's good enough for me. I expect Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to have dominant performances once again this week. Sherfield has even gotten involved in a couple of games this season. And we've seen Jeff Wilson take a significant amount of snaps at running back for the Dolphins. And Jeff Wilson, I think, is going to be RB1 down the stretch for the Dolphins, if he isn't already. So Dolphins win really handily here. Bears and Jets. Now, I'm not somebody to throw out gambling advice, but I'm going to throw out this small tidbit. Please don't bet on this game until at least Friday, because there are so many unknowns for this matchup. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Robert Saleh hasn't fully committed to Zach Wilson being the starter, and we don't know if Justin Fields is going to be in or out. It was reported that Justin Fields dislocated his shoulder in the loss last week to the Falcons, but then it turns out, as of a couple hours ago, he didn't dislocate his shoulder at all. So we don't know if he's going to miss time or not. We don't know if Zach Wilson's getting benched for Mike White. We don't know if the quarterback match will be Justin Fields versus Mike White, Justin Fields versus Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian versus Zach Wilson. We just don't know. But if Justin Fields plays, I'm going to pick the Bears. But if he doesn't, I think despite Zach Wilson playing a awful game last week against the Patriots, to really put it lightly, I think he's going to be able to recover against this Bears defense. And even with Mike White, we saw Mike White upset the Bengals last year. So Fields is in, Bears, Fields is out, Jets, no matter who the Jets quarterback is. Because the Jets defense has been underrated throughout the season, and a star has emerged on defense in Sauce Gardner, a lockdown corner. And Jermaine Johnson has been a gem as well. The Jets' pieces from the draft in April are already panning out. Falcons and Commanders, a battle between two teams that have been underrated all season long. A battle between teams that should have a better record than what their record currently is. And this is a game that I wouldn't touch if I was a bettor, because I don't know which way to go. But I would personally recommend the opposite of who I pick here. Because every time I pick the Falcons to win, they lose. More often than not, when I pick the Falcons to lose, they'll win. So I'm going to go with the Commanders in this matchup, which means the Falcons will probably win. So if I were you, personally, I would fade this pick. Because the last couple of times I've picked the Falcons to lose, they've won. And this is going to be a game where the Commanders, they do play some good defense. But the Falcons, they like to run the football, and they run the football pretty well. They're a top 5 rushing offense in the league. It's becoming a back by committee. But I expect Terry McLaurin to have a big game for the Commanders. Broncos and Panthers. Now this is unfortunately a game where somebody has to win. This is a game that I do not like to predict, because this game can go either way because both teams are terrible. But if there's one thing that the Broncos can be thankful for this Thanksgiving, it's their defense. Because without their defense, they would easily be 0-10. Their defense has carried them all season long, but Russell Wilson has been letting them down. In fact, every single game this season for the Broncos has been a one-possession game. Now that's just really something to think about as we get further along into this season. We got to question Nathaniel Hackett's ability as a coach. Now, Nathaniel Hackett, he surrendered the play-calling duties. It didn't really do them much better, although maybe it did a little bit because they took it to overtime against the Raiders. But they lost the coin toss. Devontae Adams was wide open, and he scored the game-winning touchdown. But the Panthers, they have been playing very underrated ever since they fired Matt Rule. And this is going to be a game where it's going to be the first 1-14 wins. It's going to be one of those 14-10 games. It's going to be one of those defensive battles. And I just got to go with who I think is a better defense, and that is the Broncos. So I'm going to go with Broncos country in this game, but Russell Wilson will not contribute to the win whatsoever. In fact, I expect Russell Wilson to have a stat line of probably 16 for 27, 183 passing yards, maybe about 35 rushing yards. Ravens and Jaguars. Now this is my trap game of the week. The Ravens right now are a 4-point favorite, but they go on the road to Jacksonville. The Jaguars are notorious for pulling off upsets. They're a team that if you take lightly, they're going to get you. They almost got the Packers a few years ago. They got the Bills last year. And I would not be surprised if they got the Ravens this year. And here's my thinking behind this. The Jaguars are coming off their bye week. Travis Etienne has established himself as the RB1 in this offense, as he has been absolutely dominating since taking over the starting role. Lamar Jackson has not played good since week 3, essentially. So Lamar Jackson, he's not playing like he wants to get that contract extension. In fact, I'd say maybe he's had probably one good game since week 3. And the Ravens are coming off of their sloppiest performance of the year last week against the Panthers, only winning by a score of 13-3. Now, I'm picking the Ravens to win this game, but I am not going to be shocked if the Jaguars win this game, which I probably will regret a little bit. But I am going with Baltimore. I'm hoping that Lamar Jackson can finally step it up this week. Chargers and Cardinals, like the Bears and Jets, this is another game where I'm not sure which way the pendulum is going to shift. Kyler Murray is questionable for this game with a hamstring injury. And this is another game where I would recommend don't bet on this game till at least Friday. Because if Kyler Murray plays, that's a huge impact for the Cardinals. Even though Kyler Murray has underperformed this season. DeAndre Hopkins had a hamstring injury going into Monday night last week, but he played through it. But with the Cardinals heading towards a bye next week, I would lean towards Kyler Murray missing this game. So, out of those two games where I'm not sure which way the pendulum's going to shift, if you had to have me decide which game to bet on right now between Bears Jets and Chargers Cardinals, I'd choose Chargers Cardinals because I'd lean towards Kyler Murray sitting out with the Cardinals heading towards a bye next week. And I'm going with the Chargers, especially because they are angry after last week, the heartbreaking loss on SNF to the Chiefs, a game-winning touchdown to Travis Kelce in the final 31 seconds. Plus, the Cardinals have one of the worst defenses in the league, although they may be better than what the stats show, but by stats and numbers, Chargers should win this game, at the very least by a touchdown. Raiders and Seahawks. Now this is a game where I expect a lot of points. The Raiders are coming off of an emotional win over the Broncos in overtime. The Seahawks are coming off their bye week. Devontae Adams, more often than not, is matchup proof, so I expect him to have a huge game. The Seahawks, Geno Smith has been pretty good throughout most of the year. He's had a couple bad games, but he's had more good than bad games. Kenneth Walker has emerged as a franchise running back, the RB1 in Seattle. And the Seahawks defense, they've been good mostly throughout the season, but they have had their negative moments. The Raiders defense, I would say they're not living up to their full potential, but the press conference of Derek Carr getting emotional, begging and pleading for his teammates to step up. It worked against the Broncos last week as they won in overtime. And I think they're going to carry that momentum into this game on the road in front of the 12th man and upset the Seahawks. I think it's going to be one of those games where, I said a moment ago, high scoring. I think it's going to be about 31-27. I'm going with a high scoring affair in that game. Rams and Chiefs. This game has lost all its value as the year has gone on. This game isn't worth going into a deep dive at all. Ever since the Rams hoisted the Lombardi Trophy, things have just gone from bad to worse for this team. You lose OBJ. You lose Von Miller. Andrew Whitworth retires. You get blown out by the Bills in your season opener. Cam Akers doesn't want to be on the team anymore, but Cam Akers is still getting carries for some reason. Cooper Kupp's on IR. Matthew Stafford is in the concussion protocol for the second time this season. Yeah, the Rams season is cooked. you can stick a fork in the Rams. They're done this year. The Chiefs are going to win this one, and they should honestly dominate. As much as I like to say that picking a double-digit favorite to cover in the NFL feels like too many points, I think in this situation it's not, because we're leaning towards Bryce Perkins being the starting quarterback for the Rams. So I expect the Chiefs to win in a blowout. Saints and 49ers. Now, just like the Rams and Chiefs, this game also isn't worth going into a deep dive. The Saints have been terrible all year long. In fact, Jameis Winston came out in an interview and said that it hurts him that he isn't the starting quarterback anymore. The fact that they keep playing Andy Dalton over Jameis Winston, that it crushes him, it crushes his soul. And he puts his heart and soul into it every single week. And now the Saints go on the road to San Francisco to take on who I think is the biggest threat in the NFC. This is a 49ers team that has been getting healthy as the weeks have gone on, that acquired Christian McCaffrey before the trade deadline, just adds another weapon to the San Francisco offense. Christian McCaffrey, even Elijah Mitchell, coming off of an injury, has stepped up in the last couple of weeks. We saw Brandon Ayuk have a big game against the Cardinals last week. We saw George Kittle have a big game. So George Kittle was involved in the 49ers offense other than blocking. So I expect the 49ers to absolutely dismantle the Saints. The Saints season is cooked. It's done for. Well, the 49ers, right now, I feel like they're the best team in the league right now, despite the Eagles being 9-1. So I'm going with San Francisco to absolutely dominate once again this week. Sunday night football, Packers and Eagles. The Eagles are coming off of a survive and advance win against the Colts, while the Packers are coming off of a TNF loss to the Titans. So the Packers, one thing they have is they have a couple more days extra rest to prepare for this matchup. But despite Christian Watson being a gem in this Packers offense, 5 touchdowns in the last 2 games. For the Packers to win this game, they're going to have to take a page out of the Commanders' playbook, which is going to sound unusual considering it's Aaron Rodgers. It's unusual to say to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. And that's to run the football. Utilize Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon at all costs in this game, because that is the reason how the Commanders beat the Eagles. In fact, it was a big reason why. They utilized a running game. They extended drives. They used the run to get into short yardage situations on third down. If the Packers can do just that, then I think they'll have a good chance of pulling off this upset. But I expect the Eagles' defense, run defense in particular, to be much better than what it was 2 weeks ago against the Commanders. So I think the Eagles win this game to ultimately put the final nail in the coffin in the Packers' playoff hopes. And I am honestly benching any Packers receiver I have in fantasy this week. And that includes Christian Watson, because the Eagles secondary is one of perhaps maybe even the best in the entire league. Week 12 wraps up with Monday Night Football, the Steelers and the Colts. Now this game is going to be much better than what people think. I know there are people that question the NFL scheduling with primetime football, but I'm guilty of it, but I think this is going to be a good one. We have 2 good running backs in this matchup in Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor. 2 running backs that haven't lived up to their preseason expectations, especially Najee Harris. But in these last few weeks, we have seen these 2 start to emerge, get back to those expectations. Jonathan Taylor, ever since the Colts named Jeff Saturday the interim head coach, he's really stepped up in these last couple of weeks for the Colts. And Najee Harris, his last 2 games are his best games of the year. Over 90 rushing yards in both games. And I think this game is going to simply come down to which team runs the football the best. And the Colts' offensive line hasn't been as good as it was last year. The Steelers, they need offensive line help desperately, and they need a new offensive coordinator. They need to part ways with Matt Canada. They should have done this weeks ago. But the Steelers' defense, despite giving up 37 points to the Bengals last week, I just feel like the Steelers' defense, they have their moments. I mean, one week they're giving up almost 40 to the Bills, and then the next week they shut down the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. I think this is going to be a game where the Steelers' defense rises to the occasion. I think that Najee Harris is going to have another big game. Jonathan Taylor, he should have a good game as well. In fact, I think he will. But I'm going with the Steelers in this matchup. I just think the Steelers, they've looked a little bit better these last couple of weeks. Kenny Pickett, the more experience he gets as the starter, the better he becomes. George Pickens has emerged as a star in the Steelers offense. We're just waiting for Deontay Johnson to go on a little bit. But I am going with the Steelers. And that will do it for my Week 12 NFL predictions. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the football this weekend. And I will talk to you next time.